I was personally very excited to check out the newest book by Travis Baldree, Brigands and Breadknives. I was a big fan of his previous two outings with Legends and Lattes, as well as Bookshops and Bone Dust, uh, and we get a third dive into this world that he has created, and I was so excited to go into it. Now, it does have a very different feel and vibe from the previous two books, but I think that he managed to pull it off very well. First big change from Brigands and Breadknives as opposed to, I'm just going to call it Brigands from now on. It's a bit of a mouthful and it keeps getting me a little tongue tied. Brigands does something very different by having a new character as the main character, who is Fern. And if you have read the previous books by Travis, Fern is the bookseller from Bookshops and Bone Dust. And so in this novel, Fern is the one who takes the role of the main character, and the events take place after the events of Legends and Lattes. Quick little plot synopsis: Fern is essentially moving to Thune at the request slash invitation of Viv to open up a bookshop within the city of Thune. Fern has unfortunately been feeling a bit of that ennui recently, and is getting a bit apathetic and not really having that spark and passion for bookselling anymore, and is hoping that the move to a new city and reconnecting with an old friend and starting up this new venture will help her get over that and respark her interest in the job that she loves doing. And one night, after a few weeks of getting into the swing of things in Thune, she finds out that she is miserable and just cannot seem to do it anymore. She attempts to work up the courage to tell Viv that this is not working out for her. In so doing, she gets drunk, passes out in a carriage, wakes up the next day with a horrible hangover, and a day and a half away from Thune. And the rest of the book is her dealing with the ramifications of that. That's just a basic plot synopsis for you. We'll get a bit more into the meat of it as we go through here, but that's just the elevator pitch. As for the main cast of characters that we have this time, as mentioned, Fern is the one who now takes the lead as the main character, and I think that she does a really good job of taking on the role of the main character in this as someone who is going through a bit of an identity crisis and a bit of an issue of not really knowing what she's doing with her life now. I think that that's something that a lot of people can relate to, and I think that that is written very well in Fern. If you ever had those issues where you're like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life, I'm not feeling that spark of passion for anything, I think what Fern goes through and how it ultimately resolves in the end is a really engaging and real way to write a character. Another main character that we have is the owner of the carriage that she fell asleep in. Passed out in would be a better terminology for that. And it turns out that this person is actually a mercenary. Not just any mercenary, one of the best, one of the most fabled and storied mercenaries in the world, Asterix, who is an elf who has been doing this job for over 900 years. And Asterix is currently in the middle of a quest where she is transporting her most recent quarry to the city of Amberlin. And unfortunately, Amberlin is a very long ways away, so it's going to be a while before Fern is able to actually make it back home. And the quarry that Asterix currently has in her wagon is Zill the Goblin, who I have mixed opinions on, but we'll get into that later on. Zill is essentially a little mischief-making ball of chaos, who, despite being a prisoner, has a tendency to just kind of disappear and reappear at her whim. All that we really know about her at the beginning is that she has ticked a lot of people off, and she has a very high bounty on her head. Not on her head. It's to bring her in alive. She has a very high bounty to bring her in alive. We never get an exact number. All we know is that it is an absurdly large amount of money just to transport this goblin to Amberlin. And as these three travel and make their way to Amberlin, we get a lot of really good dives as to the overall themes of this story. And I think that the themes are really relatable. Again, if you've ever had issues with finding meaning and purpose within your life, I think that these are going to be very relatable and can be very thought-provoking for some time of reflection. Fern has several instances where she is writing letters to Viv She never sends any of them. It's kind of like her own time for reflection and catharsis, where she is thinking about who she is now that she no longer relates to or is excited by the idea of being a bookseller. Because that's just not who she is right now and who she doesn't think she will be anymore. And that's something that we see a lot earlier in the book. Anytime they go into a new location and someone recognizes Asterix, they will look to Fern, and whenever someone asks, "Who's this?" Fern responds by saying, "I'm a bookseller." Like, she leads with that. That is a part of who she is and how she identifies herself. And now that she doesn't have that spark for it anymore, it's causing this identity crisis, which is something I think can be a very pervasive idea within our culture a lot of the times. I think that a lot of people tend to tie who they are as a person into what their job is. Like, their job says something about them, or so much of your identity just gets tied up in your job or career. Like, whenever you meet someone, one of the first questions that you'll be asked is, "What do you do for work?" And I always had an issue with that, and I didn't know how to word why I have an issue with that, just on like a day-to-day basis with meeting people. But I think that there is a really good excerpt in here that I want to read. We meet a character named Quillen, who just becomes friendly with Fern at one particular town, and they're having a conversation, just getting to know each other, and Fern asks Quillen what he does for work. And what he had to say, I think, sums up my ideas on this perfectly. All right, so Fern has just asked Quillen what it is that he does for work, and he says, "I've tried to make a habit of never talking about what I do until I'm out of anything else to talk about. In my experience, it's a terrible way to get to know somebody, at least if you want to know anything worthwhile. I want to learn what you laugh at, what makes your eyes roll, what gets you upset or passionate or puts you at ease. Work is just..." He flapped a paw as they ducked under the eaves in front of the mercantile, "the stuff that holds the rest of it together. It's like describing a house by talking about the nails." Beautiful metaphor. Simile, rather, because it said like. And that's how grammar works. Beautiful simile, I think, to get that across, where your job is just something you do for money, to keep everything else together. Like, whenever I meet people, I'm much more interested in, what are your hobbies? Because I want to know, what do you do for fun? What are you drawn to for those aspects of your life? Because I don't think what you do for a job is necessarily going to tell me a lot about you other than what you do for money. And then I think we also have something really interesting with Asterix, because Asterix is this mercenary who's been at the job for 900 years. If we want to talk about someone who ties what their job is to who they are, who boy, take someone who's one of the most legendary mercenaries in existence, a literal living legend, who's been doing this for 900 years, and she just keeps at it. And she keeps at it because she knows she's good at it. This is like what she does, and she does it very well. And she doesn't allow herself to see any potential other paths, despite the fact that throughout the story we see her doing this mercenary work, fighting monsters and whatnot, but not seeming to get into it so much. And yeah, it's mercenary work. How into it can you be? But it's to the point where she simply goes, saves someone, and then just leaves. Doesn't really check to make sure, like, oh, is this person okay? And then we have this beautiful scene at one point where she starts to enjoy the work and actually lets the people that she saved thank her. And she gets to relish in that for once in what must be the longest time, where she gets to actually enjoy that, and that helps her get her spark back for what she is currently doing. It's just a really good life lesson, I think, that this story provides. Just the idea that maybe you achieve your dream and life is good, but maybe out of nowhere it starts to feel kind of hollow, and that maybe what once lit your flame no longer carries that spark. And that can be okay. Maybe you've just done the same thing for too long and you need to turn the page on the next phase of your life. If you no longer get the spark from what you've been doing, you can try to find what you've been doing and do it in a different way. Or maybe you need to just try something new, and maybe now something new will take hold, and you'll find a passion in something else. And that's a-okay. Now, Brigands and Breadknives is a very different vibe from the previous books within this universe. It's not a typical cozy fantasy. We had a lot of adventure and a lot of action in comparison to the previous two. Um, if you're looking for that more very cozy fantasy, it's not going to be what you're going to get here. We do get an adventure, we got a quest, we got some higher stakes here. But we do have a lot of those slower, cozier moments throughout the story. We will have several sections of action and adventure, and then plenty of downtime to reflect and take in everything that just happened, which is a pace that I really like. I love it whenever a book gives us time to breathe between set pieces. Whenever a book just goes from like action scene, action scene, action scene, it just kind of stresses me out a little bit, and I need time to like, okay, let's ease back. Can we take a moment to process what just happened? And we get a lot of those moments of self reflection and looking back on what's happened and what that means to the characters. They develop and have their own arcs in a very satisfying way. I think all the characters are written very well. The only thing that really fell flat for me was just the ending felt a bit rushed. That's the only thing that really fell flat for me. I just wanted a bit more info on Zill, but I think having little information on Zill is kind of the point. And of course, the core theme and Fern's struggle is very relatable. I think a lot of us have had issues with struggling to find purpose and meaning in what we're doing. So I think her plight can relate to a very large audience. And it's just nice where in this, fantastical world of elves and ratkins and goblins, magic, we're able to find a very human issue and have this as a medium to explore that issue that I think a lot of people might struggle with. But those are just my thoughts on Brigands and Breadknives, and I want to know your thoughts. Have you read it? Do you plan on reading it? Have you read any other books by Travis? What are your thoughts on those? Because I really like Travis as an author. I really like the books that he's put out so far. If he's got more in the making, I will be talking about those as well, because I just really like this world and these characters. But get down in the comments and let's get that conversation going. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.